Hi everybody, I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture.
And I'm Adam Nicholas from WhatCulture, and we have tons of news story for you today, including the latest plans for WrestleMania 36's main event.
I'm going to tell you about the 6 WWE wrestlers that were knocked out last week.
NXT stars have been told not to talk to the dirt sheets.
Forgotten my last story, can't remember what it is. Corey Graves thinks Becky Lynch is boring. There we go.
Excellent. And Shawn Michaels might have quit the drugs, but he's still very high on this WWE superstar. This is the news. I almost forgot there.
Hey, we're rolling rusty this morning, but it's Monday, baby. What the hell do you expect?
It's true.
Anyway, we are going to kick things off with a little bit of discussion on WWE's house show business and why exactly they are dialing back on the number of live events they hold every month. So we spoke about this a little bit last week, noting that wrestlers were being given more time off, there were fewer shows, there were fewer brand-specific shows and more combined roster shows, and this obviously led to some friction with some wrestlers because obviously when you're working less dates, you're not getting paid as much. So there's a playoff there. You're at home more often. You've got more time to heal. You've got more time with your family. But you're missing out on those house show bonuses, those live event bonuses. Well, Dave Meltzer has come through with a bit of an explanation of why WWE are doing this, why they're cutting back. There's a couple actually. The first one is because it's a failing business metric. If you look at recent quarterly reports, next ones are due on Friday, they'll be very interesting. But if you look at recent ones, attendances are down, revenues are down. They actually made a loss on them in Q3 2019, which was the last set of reports to come out. And on top of this, WWE are quite concerned by this metric because it drives stock prices down a little bit and it creates the perception that their brand is not as strong or it's declining in popularity. So it's both a perception and a numbers thing. They think, presumably, that if they desaturate the market a little bit and there's less demand, less supply, there'll be more demand. It's basic economics. Greater scarcity leads to more people going, hey, I really want that, and I'll go to it. If a show's rolling through your town like 3 times a year, you're less likely to go to that than you are if it comes through, once every 2 years. So there's logic behind this, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of these financial reports on Friday, see if they offer any further updates.
Word life, this is basic economics. That's all I have to say on that, other than the fact that at a time when their stock prices have already plummeted, given the departures of the co-presidents that we saw earlier this week, maybe a good time to start looking at these things. It's nice to see Vince is actually addressing them. I am fascinated, though, to see what happens after the XFL starts. Yeah, genuinely fascinated by that. Well, here's hoping that works out better for the superstars as well as Vince McMahon. But let's talk about WrestleMania 36's main event. Now, there's been a lot of stories regarding this ever since Edge returned and we saw the program, well, potentially assuming him and Randy Orton will be having a match at Mania. Lots of talk was, could it be those two? Lots of talk was, perhaps it was one of the women's matches. Becky Lynch against Shayna Baszler, perhaps, or something along those lines. Well, apparently it's not. You can imagine what the main event is going to be. According to Dave Meltzer of The Observer, it is going to be Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship in a beef versus beef match, as Vince would have it. Andy Murray, your thoughts?
It's a big beefy battle, that isn't it?
It is a big beefy battle. One I have to say I am kind of into. I'm very into, actually.
Slapping the pecs off each other. It's going to be good stuff. Yeah, it's going back to tradition, really, isn't it? It's the world champion versus the Royal Rumble winner, which will satisfy a lot of people right away. And if you haven't got Ronda Rousey, you might as well go for your other big mainstream star in the main event slot, which is Brock Lesnar.
Or Drew McIntyre.
There you go, Drew McIntyre. My goodness.
It's all there.
Big fan of that. And also, it's a big beefy battle in the main event. Last year, of course, Brock opened the show proper, losing his belt to Seth the Chef in that opening match, which was basically just a punch in the willy. Yeah. Get it up you.
Punch and stomp.
Get it up you, Chief.
Like a Slipknot gig.
You want to get knocked out in the pit, brother?
Yeah, baby.
I think there will be some discussion on the situation with the women, because obviously they headlined last year, but it's a harder sell when you don't have Ronda Rousey. Theoretically, you put your biggest star in the biggest spotlight. In this case, your biggest star is Brock Lesnar. I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense too. And to be honest, I'm really happy. If that does happen, I'll be really happy for Drew McIntyre. Yeah. I think it was always going to be a hard ask. Vince was probably never going to do 2 back-to-back women's main events because he's Vince McMahon, and that's probably hard enough for him doing the first one. So good to see. Actually, tell you what, good to see the WWE Championship at the top of the card.
Yeah.
That is something I am pleased to see about.
Yeah, 100%. Should be a good match as well.
Absolutely.
Let's dial things back to the last week and a half or so. A crazy number of wrestlers suffered either concussions or concussion-adjacent injuries on WWE programming. So, at Worlds Collide, we saw the most obvious example. That was Alexander Wolf. Bobby Fish was intended to kick him in the chest. He ended up accidentally kicking him in the jaw. Concussed him straight up, had to be removed from the match. The remaining wrestlers had to call it on the fly. They did a great job. It's worth mentioning that Wolf has completely absolved Bobby of any blame for this. He said, my head was a little bit low. It's my fault. It's my bad, which is nice to hear. It's nothing worse than wrestlers slinging mud about injuries. Yeah. But also in that match, apparently, according to Dave Meltzer of The Observer, Marcel Bartel and Roderick Strong also took knocks. Although the nature and degree of those hasn't been specified. Now, fast forward to Raw, and another 3 wrestlers took concussions or concussion-related injuries. The first one, Samoa Joe, we all know about that one, pulled from his tag title match. He's going to be out for a while. But also Riddick Moss, who I don't remember taking anything.
What?
Yeah, weird one. And Rey Mysterio, who wrestled MVP. This is nuts. So in the space of what was Worlds Collide was Saturday, Raw was Monday. In the space of 3 days, people took head knocks. Now they're all in varying states of recovery. We're probably not going to see Joe and Wolf for a while, but we don't really know about the other 4 at the moment. It's an interesting little situation.
That's a lot, man. That's big numbers, and especially when they're so very strict on the policy when it comes to this sort of thing. The Riddick Moss thing, I'm trying to figure out what exactly. If that was on TV, I'm not really sure.
I don't remember at all because he got in R-Truth's face a little bit, but did he take a blow? I can't even remember.
I don't think he did. I think he just intimidated him into Mojo Rawley. Maybe it happened outside, maybe on
Maybe the sheer force of R-Truth's character just knocked him.
Whatever it is, I hope it doesn't continue because we don't want to see this across the board. And like you say, it was hard enough for the guys from Undisputed Era and Imperium to kind of put the rest of that match together without Wolf. But it is nice to see that although these things are happening, at least the wrestlers aren't being daft about it. We saw similar with AJ Styles, who obviously got injured, turning himself inside out because he, as he said, over-brothered himself for Edge, which I thought was a wonderful way of putting it, because who wouldn't want to put over Edge on his return? But sticking with NXT, we do have a few things to do with their superstars. It's got nothing to do with their fitness, but it does have to do with their well-being, I guess, maybe. Let's call it that. Yeah. Basically, there's been a few meetings happening in NXT recently. One of the first ones that happened maybe last week was there was a meeting held with talent at the Performance Center to basically tell them, stop calling out the main roster stars. You're not getting any matches with them. Pack it in. I do wonder if this come off the back of possibly the Matt Riddle, Brock Lesnar stuff. You'd have to think that was involved slightly. But according to Fightful Select, there's been another meeting and another discussion, which apparently seems to have gone really well, because in being told by the NXT brass that you are not to talk to the dirt sheets, someone went and spoke to the dirt sheets, which is great, because according to Fightful Select, superstars were told that they aren't to talk to the dirt sheets. And I have a quote here from obviously an unnamed source that says, they reminded me that I'm a contractor, then tried to tell me who I couldn't talk to, so here I am, which obviously is the exact response to getting told by your bosses that you can't do something. Apparently in this same meeting, because it was held during some WWE orientation for new recruits, they mentioned the fact that everybody has to basically confirm and prove that they also have health insurance, because as we know, WWE, because of the independent contractor nature of the contracts, they don't actually offer them any healthcare. So this is all during orientation. I think it's interesting in terms of, well, specifically going back to that, do not call the main roster out. That's very interesting. But in terms of the dead sheets thing, is this becoming a big problem, perhaps?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because there's always going to be, guys like Sean Ross Sapp, Mike Johnson, Ryan Satin, Dave Meltzer. They have their internal sources in the company that remain anonymous, because that's journalism. You don't burn a source. You don't hang them out to dry. So it's interesting that they perceive it as a problem. It sounds like, the story about the don't call out main roster stars. It sounds like that has almost spurred this thing and gone, hey, you person, whoever it was, that let that out, You're a bad boy, and we don't want that happening again.
Slap on the wrist.
But the reaction is just hilarious, as you mentioned there. Someone immediately speaking to someone from Fightful and going, hey man, here's what happened.
Almost texting them, you can imagine, while they're getting this shouted at them like, oh mate, I've got
Dear
such a story
Shawn.
for you here. Dear Shawn from Anonymous. Your good pal, Anonymous. We'll be interested to see if we get less quotes from NXT superstars in the coming weeks and months, but I guess we'll have to wait and see regarding that.
Yeah, let's see how it rolls on. I'm going to talk to you now about a story that I've forgotten about already. Corey Graves.
You really don't like this story, do you?
It's a weird one. It's a weird one. Corey Graves, After the Bell podcast, home of many a spicy take since it came about. And Corey, on the latest episode, actually spoke a little bit about Becky Lynch and essentially questioned whether or not the WWE Universe are starting to get tired of her. Now, that sounds incendiary, but let me read out what he said. It's a pretty good discussion, actually. He said, it is my concern that the WWE Universe is beginning to tire of the man. This is historically a common occurrence in WWE. When someone reaches megastar status, people tire of them. Look no further than John Cena, Roman Reigns, and Ronda Rousey. He also cited Seth Rollins as another good example. Everyone wanted him to beat Brock Lesnar, then he beats Brock Lesnar a few months ago. He's a really divisive character, not as popular as he once was. Now, he also talks about like how this is a cyclical business, and in his words, maybe it's time for another evolution, another step to the man. He adds that the character traits that made her the man in the first place, the I'm not getting my due, these people are getting pushed ahead of me, all this stuff, I'm coming to take what's mine, well, they don't resonate as strongly when you've been the top champion for almost a year, which is a really good point. And he says, he goes on to say, I wonder if there's an evolution coming with the character, perhaps to mitigate any slides in popularity. It's an interesting one to pick apart because Becky's crowd reactions are still very high. She's a good merch seller. She's certainly still a very popular figure, but we don't have a lot of ratings or attendance data to support the idea that she's this massive draw. She's certainly very popular, and I think analysing draws in 2020 is very difficult because there are very few legitimate ones left. The company have gone out of their way to ensure that WWE is the draw,
the brand,
not Becky or Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins or whoever else. There are exceptions to this, of course. If Brock Lesnar shows up, he's going to pop a little bit more interest. John Cena, your part-timers, The Rock, your Steve Austins. There's more you can name there, but it's an interesting debate and a good little discussion from Corey here.
Absolutely, I think it's... Look, this is I've already started down this path and I'm going to instantly regret it. If you're a Blink-182 fan, it's like them trying to play all these songs in their 50s or whatever about being these young lads. But like, it doesn't work anymore because your circumstances have changed. Now, Becky Lynch was, as Andy said there, for a long time, the person who'd been kept down by the system, She was fighting against it. To try to continue that a little bit, but it's hard for her to give that character off when she's sitting there doing all the magazine covers, she's on the covers of the game, she's been given every press opportunity possible. Rightly so, I should point out, because she got there and she's made that position her own. Now, they did try and recover this slightly with the Asuka stuff, where it was she's not signing a contract, but even that, to a certain degree, felt a little bit forced. We're starting to feel the hand of the author a little bit more, and as much as people might think this is a bad take from Corey Graves, actually sounds like a pretty well thought out one.
Yeah, three-dimensional, argues both sides, offers solutions, good stuff.
It's almost like he's good enough to have a platform to do a podcast about it all. Who knows? But another person who was once the top of the company, the big bad boy of WWE, was Shawn Michaels. And we've had a little bit of a tidbit here from the Wrestling Observer regarding Shawn Michaels being quite high on a certain WWE superstar. And it just so happens to be Jordan Devlin of NXT UK. Now, obviously, we saw Jordan Devlin win the Cruiserweight title at Worlds Collide was it last weekend or the weekend? Is it the
weekend?
Last Saturday, the Saturday before. There you go.
25th.
Our brains are good. It's Monday morning. Yes, Devlin obviously won the belt in that amazing fatal four-way that happened at Worlds Collide. And apparently the plan is to have Devlin defend that title across multiple brands. Shawn Michaels, well, to be honest, if Shawn Michaels is high on you as a wrestler, I mean, that can't be a bad thing, can it? We've seen this with a bunch of other superstars like Johnny Gargano and Velveteen Dream. You can tell he just loves being amongst these talents. Interesting though, he's latched on to someone like Devlin, who obviously is criminally, in my opinion, should be on all these other brands, and I would assume that's why they put the belt on him, because they want to give him an opportunity to prove himself, because that guy has got star power, and they have been sleeping on him for nearly 2 years now.
Yeah, he's absolutely tremendous. He's a wonderful professional wrestler. I've called him one of the most underrated wrestlers in the world several times on here before, and I stand by that 100%. I really can't wait to see him on NXT in the USA in particular. That's a nice bigger platform for him. Put more eyes on him, get more over, get more popularity, make more people realize that this guy's the real deal, and he can really be a star in this cruiserweight division.
Absolutely. Much more than, well, I can't really say the words, but Finn Balor, as all the fans used to chat at him, which I don't think was just, but maybe it was back then. Definitely not now, though. He is certainly on the rise.
He's the man. Let's roll over to your Twitter question for the day. We're only going to do one today because what happens when Adam Wilborn isn't here is that we have no concept of time and we sit here for 40 minutes. But I've got one here from Matt Ryan, a legend of the channel, who asks, with entrances being a big part of the spectacle of WrestleMania, who has had some of the coolest or grandest entrances, and which, we'll stick to the second part here, which epic entrance would you love to see at WrestleMania this year? I would love to see Kyrie enter on a pirate ship.
That sounds great. Love that. I'll try and keep this brief. Big memorable ones, Rusev in a tank.
Yes.
Loved that, although not quite as good as Shotzi Blackheart's tank, which I know you really enjoyed. And a one I'd love to see at WrestleMania, it's got to be Edge, hasn't it? I mean, seeing that pyro, seeing the entrance one last time at WrestleMania, we may get a few more yet, but that feels big. That feels like the one I'd like to see.
So
yours is going to be something ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, the one I'd like to see.
He's got that look on his face.
The one I'd like to see. I saw an article on another website, Cage-Side Seats, this morning, that pointed out a tweet Bray Wyatt, or an Instagram post Bray Wyatt had recently made, where he said, "Hey, does anyone know anyone who can turn my Cadillac into a monster truck?"
Oh no!
So what?
No! Oh God!
What I want to see at WrestleMania is the Fiend's music hitting, all that crazy metal, and the lights, and it's scary and it's spooky, and out comes this dopey ass monster truck with the Fiend's face on the front.
Oh God! I didn't even think about his face being on the front of it. Like, he's got his face on the front, his face on the belt, and then his face.
Every wheel, every tyre is filled in, so it's going.
His face just going round and round and round.
Can you imagine that?
Oh. Do you know what it is? Oh God, you've killed me there.
How do you make it even more ridiculous?
The worst part is because he'll be like, "I'm a monster, and what's bigger than I'm a monster."
You imagine Michael Cole, "The monster's got a monster
He's
truck."
got a monster truck. Oh my God, Corey. It is!
Oh my!
The tyres. His face on the tyres.
With spinning rims.
Oh,
like John Cena.
And he's. Oh, God.
We have worked ourselves into a shoot.
That's it.
Worked ourselves into a hoot.
Oh,
and that's what we've done.
gosh.
Anyway, thank you for joining us for today's
Let him in.
news.
Don't forget, let him in.
Yeah.
Let him in.
You got a big door to let that
Let him
monster
in.
truck
Oh, God.
Thank you for joining us today. Your support is always appreciated. You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Send us your Twitter questions at #ThisIsTheNews, the WhatCultureWWE. Already said that. You can find Adam Nicholas on Twitter at
It's Adam Nicholas, and you can find this lovely man on Twitter
at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Happy Soup Bowl.
Hey!
They've done it. The Kansas City Chiefs
They have
overcome the San Francisco 69ers.
Makes sense.
I only
Oi, oi.
wish it was my beloved Baltimore Bastards.
I know, what you're going to do. The chefs
Say
are
that.
always going to win something that's related to soup, aren't they? Let's be honest.
That's the one,
Hey,
man.
never mind.
Bye.
Goodbye.